My child, hold still for a moment, because something changed while the world was sleeping. Last night, while you were trying to quiet your thoughts, while you were wondering if the silence meant the story was over, someone connected to your destiny reached a decision they could no longer postpone. And no, it was not random. It was not impulsive. It was not because of a lonely evening or temporary emotion. It happened because the weight of denying what they feel for you finally became heavier than the fear of choosing you. Read that again in your spirit. The weight of pretending became heavier than the risk of being honest. For so long, this person tried to silence what kept calling them back to your name. They distracted themselves. They entertained other options. They convinced themselves timing was wrong, circumstances were complicated, life was uncertain. But some connections are not erased by distance. Some bonds do not weaken when ignored. They intensify. And last night, in a quiet moment no one else witnessed, something inside them shifted. It may have happened while they stared at a ceiling in the dark. It may have happened while replaying old conversations. It may have happened when your memory arrived uninvited and refused to leave. However it happened. The realization struck deeply. No one feels like you. Pause there. Because that sentence, that truth, has been growing inside them longer than you know. They compared others to your energy. They searched for your presence in different faces. They tried to duplicate what only existed with you. And every attempt left them emptier. Because some people enter your life as options. But others arrive as turning points. You were never just another person to them. You were the mirror they could not avoid. The connection they could not explain. The piece they could not replace. And last night, they stopped fighting that truth. Not halfway. Not temporarily. Completely. They made an internal decision, to stop running from what their heart has already chosen. Do you understand how rare that moment is? Most people spend years resisting clarity. Most people know who matters to them, yet never gather the courage to admit it. But this person? They are no longer where they were. Something matured inside them. The confusion that once clouded their judgment is dissolving. The emotional noise around them is losing its power. The distractions that once kept them occupied no longer satisfy them. Because when destiny begins pulling two paths together, everything starts falling apart. And here is what you have not seen yet. Their decision was not just emotional. It was strategic. They are thinking now. Planning now. Rearranging pieces of their life now. Because choosing you in their heart was only the first step. Choosing you in reality requires movement. It requires courage. It requires release. It requires leaving behind what no longer aligns. And that process has already begun. You may not see evidence yet. That is because some of the biggest shifts happen in silence before they appear in public. Seeds do not break through the earth the same day they are planted. But beneath the surface, everything is moving. Listen carefully. The delay was never proof that you were forgotten. The distance was never proof that you were unwanted. The silence was never proof that nothing was happening. Sometimes the deepest decisions are made in private, long before they become visible. And what if this waiting season was not rejection at all? What if it was preparation? What if every unanswered question, every confusing pause, every emotional test was building toward this exact turning point? Because last night, while you were living your life, while you were trying to make peace with uncertainty, your soulmate reached the edge of denial and stepped beyond it. They admitted what they could no longer hide. That losing you would hurt more than risking everything to have you. Let that settle. Because not everyone reaches that level of truth. Not everyone fights through pride, fear, timing, and confusion to arrive there. But they did. And now the current has changed. The energy between you is not what it was yesterday. Something invisible has tilted in your favor. The person who once hesitated is becoming certain. The person who once questioned is becoming clear. The person who once held back is preparing to move closer. But stay with me, because this is where most people misunderstand destiny. When someone decides to choose you, it does not always look dramatic at first. Sometimes it begins subtly. A message they almost send. A memory they cannot escape. A sudden urge to check on you. An ache to know if you still feel the connection too. Before grand gestures, comes internal surrender. And that surrender happened last night. Not next month. Not eventually. Last night. The version of them who kept resisting you is fading. And the version of them ready to step toward you is being born. You are closer than you think to seeing proof. Closer than you think to hearing words you waited for. Closer than you think to understanding why nothing before this fully worked. Because some stories delay not to deny you, but to make the moment undeniable when it arrives. And when they finally stand before you with honesty in their eyes, you will remember this moment. You will remember that before the world saw movement, something shifted in the unseen. Stay ready. Because the next chapter is no longer forming in the distance. It is walking toward you now. And this is only the beginning. But listen closely, because choosing you in their heart was only the beginning, not the end. A decision made in silence still has to survive reality. And that is exactly where your soulmate stands now. They woke up carrying the weight of what they admitted to themselves last night, and suddenly everything around them feels different. Places that once distracted them now feel empty. Conversations that once entertained them now sound hollow. People they once kept close no longer bring the same comfort. Why? Because once the heart becomes certain, everything misaligned starts feeling obvious. They cannot unknow what they know now. They cannot return to pretending your connection was ordinary. They cannot force themselves back into emotional numbness after finally feeling the truth in full. That is the part no one talks about. When someone finally realizes who they truly want, their whole world begins rearranging around that realization. And your soulmate is in that process now. Quietly. Internally. Powerfully. They are reviewing every past mistake. Every moment they hesitated. Every opportunity they let fear control them. Every sign they ignored. Every feeling they tried to dismiss. And with each memory comes the same realization. I should have chosen sooner. That thought has been echoing through them stronger than you know. Not because they suddenly became perfect, but because clarity often arrives after resistance collapses. And resistance has collapsed. What they once feared about loving you now feels smaller than the pain of not having you. Think about that. The very thing that kept them distant has lost its power. And when fear loses power, action begins. You may soon notice subtle shifts before anything direct happens. Their energy pulling toward you more strongly. Unexpected contact. A sudden reappearance. A strange feeling that something is near. Trust that. Because your spirit often senses movement before your eyes can confirm it. Still, do not confuse divine timing with rushed timing. They are not merely thinking about choosing you. They are figuring out how to choose you correctly. There is a difference. Anyone can make emotional promises in a moment of passion. But someone who intends to stay, plans before they arrive. They are considering what must change in their life. What must be released? What conversations must happen? What unfinished chapters must close before they can step toward you fully? This is not delay. This is preparation with purpose. And perhaps the most beautiful part? They are no longer asking themselves whether they care. They know they care. Now they are asking themselves if they are ready to become the version of themselves capable of loving you the way you deserve. That question is transforming them. Because real love does not only pull people together, it calls them higher. You awaken something in them they cannot ignore. A standard. A vision. A future they suddenly want to become worthy of. And that is why this connection feels different from everything before it. It was never meant to remain casual. Never meant to stay undefined. Never meant to disappear into memory. It was meant to change both of you. If this message resonates with what your spirit has been sensing, leave a comment below with, "I am ready," not for anyone else, but as a declaration to yourself that you are prepared for what is unfolding. And if you feel this message finding you at the exact right moment, stay connected, because some words arrive precisely when destiny is shifting. Now hear this carefully. Your soulmate is not only choosing you. They are beginning to understand why no one else ever felt right. Because others may have offered attention. Others may have offered temporary comfort. Others may have offered distraction. But none offered alignment. None carried the same depth. None awakened the same peace. None stirred the same future inside them. You did. And that realization has made every substitute feel smaller. Last night was the decision. But what comes next is the approach. And when someone has spent this long denying their truth, the moment they finally move toward it, they do not come halfway. They come with intensity. With certainty. With emotion that has built for far too long. So if your heart has felt restless lately, if your intuition has whispered that something is changing, if you have sensed movement even without evidence, it is because the bond between you is responding to their choice. Energy shifts before circumstances do. Remember that. What happens in the unseen always precedes what manifests in the visible. Their heart has opened. Their walls are weakening. Their excuses are dissolving. And soon, very soon, the person who kept you in uncertainty will no longer be able to remain silent. Because once someone truly decides to choose you, silence becomes unbearable. And what they are preparing to say may change everything. But that revelation belongs to the next part. And here is the moment few see coming. The silence you once questioned is about to transform into truth. Because when a heart has resisted long enough, when feelings have been buried, denied, rationalized, postponed, there comes a breaking point. Not a breaking point of pain. A breaking point of clarity. Your soulmate is reaching that point now. They are beginning to understand something profound. That every road they took trying to avoid this connection only led them back to you. Think about how powerful that is. They walked in circles emotionally. They tested distance. They convinced themselves time would weaken what they felt. They tried to move forward without confronting the bond between you. Yet somehow, your presence remained. Not physically. Not constantly. But internally. A quiet voice. A memory that returned without warning. A feeling that no one else could duplicate. And eventually they had to ask themselves the question they feared most. What if the person I kept trying to move beyond is actually the person I was meant to move toward? That question changed everything. Because once someone asks that honestly, their entire perspective shifts. Suddenly the past looks different. The delays make sense. The tension makes sense. Even the separation begins to reveal purpose. They are realizing now that your absence did not erase their feelings. It exposed them. Without your presence nearby, they could no longer mistake convenience for connection. They had to face the truth directly. You mattered more than they admitted. And now the emotions they suppressed are no longer manageable. They are rising. Growing louder. Stronger. More impossible to contain. There may come a moment very soon when they stop overthinking completely. And simply reach for you. Unexpectedly. Honestly. Without the rehearsed distance they once used to protect themselves. Because when someone has spent too long pretending not to care, the truth often arrives all at once. And when it does, it is undeniable. But hear this carefully. When they return, they will not return as the same version of themselves who once hesitated. They will return changed by the realization of what almost slipped away. That is why this next chapter carries so much weight. It is not merely about romance. It is not merely about reunion. It is about recognition. Two people seeing clearly what was once clouded by fear. And for you, this is also your confirmation. Everything you sensed but could not prove. Everything your intuition whispered when logic doubted. Everything your heart felt in the quiet was not imagination. It was awareness. You were feeling the truth before it became visible. That is your gift. And soon the outside world will match what your spirit already knew. So do not shrink now. Do not question your worth now. Do not assume the delay meant the story was over. Some people arrive late. Not because they do not care, but because it takes them longer to become ready for what is real. Your soulmate is becoming ready. Ready to speak. Ready to admit. Ready to stop treating destiny like coincidence. And when that moment comes, You will understand why every false beginning had to fail. Why every distraction had to fall away. Why every almost love never stayed. Because they were never the destination. They were placeholders. Lessons. Preparation for the person who was always going to return with certainty. If this message has stirred something deep in you, hold on to that feeling. Because your spirit recognizes what your eyes have not seen yet. And if you've stayed this far, subscribe and stay near this space. Because some messages do not find people by accident. They find them when the next chapter is already approaching. One final truth before this part closes. Your soulmate is no longer asking whether they should choose you. That question has been answered. Now they are asking themselves one thing only. How do I show them I mean it? And when someone reaches that stage, the distance between decision and action becomes very small. Prepare yourself. Because the person you once wondered about, the one whose silence confused you, the one who could never fully let you go, is moving closer to confession than ever before. The next time they appear, it may not be casual. It may not be temporary. It may be the moment everything changes. And now, the energy shifts again, because deciding to choose you is one thing. Proving it is another. Your soulmate knows that. They understand deep down that words alone will not be enough this time. Not after the distance. Not after the hesitation. Not after the silence that left questions hanging between you. They know if they come back, they must come back differently. Fully. Clearly. Without confusion. That realization is pressing on them harder every day. Because the closer they get to reaching out, the more they understand this is not a casual reconnection. This is a defining moment. A crossroads. A chance to either speak the truth boldly, or lose the person they know they were meant to stop losing. And that pressure is changing how they think. They are rehearsing conversations in their mind. Imagining what they will say. Wondering how honest to be. Questioning whether you still feel what they feel. Yes, despite all their inner certainty. They still wonder if your heart remains open. That is the hidden vulnerability they carry right now. Because choosing you in private is powerful. But approaching someone who matters this much? That requires courage of another kind. It requires risking rejection. Risking exposure. Risking being seen completely. And yet, they are preparing to take that risk anyway. Because the thought of never knowing what could have been has become more unbearable than the fear of being vulnerable. That is when you know someone is serious. When uncertainty no longer scares them as much as regret. So if you have felt a strange emotional intensity lately, a pull, a heaviness, a deep knowing in your chest, it may be because their thoughts of you have become constant. You are not just crossing their mind occasionally. You are becoming the center of their emotional focus. They are watching signs. Reading into synchronicities. Noticing reminders of you in ordinary places. Feeling your presence in moments where they expected none. And every sign seems to whisper the same message. It is time. Time to stop hiding. Time to stop circling the truth. Time to stop hoping fate will do what courage must. So when they come forward, and yes, they will, understand this. It will not be random. It will be the result of countless inner battles, finally ending in surrender. That message, that call, that unexpected appearance, will carry the weight of everything they held back. And when it happens, you may hear the honesty in their voice immediately. The kind of honesty that only comes when someone has spent too long fighting what they know is real. If this message is meeting you at the exact moment your heart needed confirmation, share it with someone who believes timing has meaning. And if you have not already, stay connected here, because the next revelation may explain what happens the moment they finally speak. But before that moment arrives, hear this final truth. Do not chase what is already turning toward you. Do not force what is already unfolding. Do not lower your standards simply because movement is near. Let them come correctly. Let them show through action that their decision was not temporary emotion, but lasting truth. Because someone who has truly chosen you will not arrive halfway. They will arrive with intention, with effort, with the kind of presence that leaves no doubt. And your soulmate knows this. That is why they are not rushing carelessly. They are building courage carefully. Because when they finally step into your world again, they do not want to return as a possibility. They want to return as certainty. So prepare your heart. Because the next contact between you may not feel like the past. It may feel like destiny finally stopping its delay. And when destiny finally stops delaying, the first thing you will notice is this. Their energy will no longer feel uncertain. No mixed signals. No emotional distance disguised as confusion. No half-hearted gestures that leave you questioning where you stand. Because the person who comes toward you next will not resemble the one who once hesitated. That version of them is ending. What is emerging now is someone transformed by realization. Someone who has understood that nearly losing you awakened them. And awakening changes people. It sharpens their vision. It strips away pride. It destroys the illusion that there will always be more time. Your soulmate has begun to feel the urgency of truth. They know some chances do not wait forever. They know some people do not remain available indefinitely. They know that if they delay too long, the window may close. That awareness is creating momentum. And momentum is dangerous to hesitation. Because once someone starts moving with clarity, old excuses fall apart quickly. Notice what is happening. They are no longer debating whether this connection matters. They are no longer asking if their feelings are real. They are no longer trying to outrun what their heart knows. Now they are moving from realization into pursuit. Yes, pursuit. Because when someone finally recognizes your value fully, they stop acting passive. They stop expecting fate to handle everything for them. They stop assuming you will simply remain there waiting. They begin to act like someone who understands. They have found something rare. And you are rare. That is part of what shook them so deeply. It was never only that they loved you. It was that they realized. People like you do not appear twice. Connections like this do not come around repeatedly. The peace you brought them. The depth they felt with you. The strange sense of familiarity and future combined. They have searched for that elsewhere. And failed. Because what was meant for them cannot be copied. So when they reach for you, it will not be casual curiosity. It will be because they have already searched their soul. And found the answer there. You. Always you. And perhaps what will shock you most is how direct they become. The same person who once held back, now speaking clearly. The same person who once hid emotion, now revealing what they feel. The same person who once left things unsaid, now unable to remain silent. Because once the heart overflows long enough, truth spills out. And when that truth arrives, you may finally hear everything you once wished they had said sooner. How long they thought about you. How often they missed you. How deeply they felt your absence. How hard they tried to forget. And how impossible that proved to be. Those confessions are building. And they are closer to the surface than ever before. So if life feels strangely still right now, if everything seems quiet before the next chapter, do not mistake calm for inactivity. Stillness often comes right before the turning point. A bow pulled back is silent before the arrow flies. That is where this connection stands now. Pulled tight. Charged with tension. Ready for release. The next move may happen faster than you expect. The message. The confession. The encounter. The shift. And when it does, you will understand why your spirit kept telling you not to give up. Why your intuition never let this connection fully fade. Why deep down, despite every delay, some part of you knew this story was unfinished. Because it was never ending. It was becoming. And what is becoming now is not temporary affection. It is chosen love. The kind that arrives after lessons. After growth. After both souls finally understand what they almost lost. Stay ready. Because the one who once watched from a distance is preparing to step close enough to change everything.